All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming down. In a few minutes, we're going to introduce you to a speaker who's going to talk to you guys about some of the skills that you might even not realize that you're developing while you're here in high school. You know, lots of times you kind of think it's about what you're learning in that 40-minute window in your classrooms. There's a lot more that you guys are learning you know, throughout the day while you're here, interacting with different groups of people and adults, administrators, and teachers. All that stuff is helping you develop some of the skills that are going to help you be very successful when you leave here, whether that's going to college or going directly into the workforce. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk to you about today. We're going to make sure you recognize that you already have a lot of those talents that are going to be important for you to find success. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Pat McCormick, who's going to be speaking to you today about those very things. Please give him a round of applause.
All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Pat McCormick. I'm the founder and CEO of Pat Talks. What we do is we kind of talk about the skills that you're going to develop here in high school and how it's going to make you better in the economic climate that we're about to enter today. Yeah, bring it down. Don't worry. It's going to be a lot of fun today. We're going to learn a lot of good stuff. And even if you don't, you're out of class for a couple hours, right? So not too bad right there. So round of applause to that. All right. So what is PAT? What is the PAT philosophy? What are the 3 pillars to get you successful? What are you developing here at CompSwag that's going to put you above your peers, get you out there into the environment, and make you successful? And it's pretty simple. It breaks down to 3 things. First, you got to have a leadership philosophy. You got to understand your ethical and moral code, what you're willing to cross and what you're not willing to cross out there, and figure out how do you define success. Is success making the most amount of money? Is it smoking the most vapes? Is it making, you know, getting out there in the world? And you got to define what success is. You got to make sure it's a smart goal, and you got to make sure it's something that helps the community. And then you got to have the right attitude in the workplace. And attitude breaks down to a very simple formula we'll get to later that leads you to that success. And then finally, T, you got to have the technical skill. You know what the resume asks for when you put it out there. You know what the technical skills are to succeed in whatever environment, whatever college, whatever trade school you decide to go to later. You know what is expected of you, so have that skill set to actually succeed in that environment, whether it's being proficient with Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, computer technology, speaking with people, shaking hands, whatever that technical skill is, leverage your soft skills you learn here in high school to make it happen. So let's move on to the first pillar, which is leadership philosophy. Have that right philosophy right there. Now, a couple of you have probably heard this quote before, right? You miss 100% of shots you don't take. And there's a big debate. Was it Wayne Gretzky, or was it the man, myth, and legend Michael Scott that first said it? It was Michael Scott, true and true. Wayne Gretzky didn't start up a paper company and compete against his old boss, but Michael Scott did. He took that shot, and he succeeded. That's right. So will you. So will you. Michael Scott took what we call a calculated risk. He sat there in that environment. He saw there was a need for paper. Dunder Mifflin wasn't providing it. So what did he do? He didn't want to sit there and continue to get treated like a fool and all that. What he said was, I'm going to start my own paper business. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to take that calculated risk, and I'm going to compete against them. And that's exactly what you got to do. You got to realize what the calculated risks are out there in life and be willing to take a chance. For me, it was joining the United States Army when I was 18 years old. I went to the University of Delaware. I was, thank you, yeah, thank you very much. I was a student at the University of Delaware. During my freshman year, I actually received an ROTC scholarship, and I knew that I wanted to serve my country in a bigger and better way than just getting out there and making the most money. I define success as serving something bigger than myself. Now my definition of success has changed a couple years later, and so will yours as you grow and develop and get that personal growth. And the success for Michael Scott changed, right? Michael Scott wanted to be the greatest paper regional salesman in the world. He accomplished that. He became a regional director and a boss. And then he realized, you know what, I want to start my own company. You got to take those calculated risks out there. You got to be willing to look at a situation, identify the pros and cons, and then sit there and say, is it worth getting out there? Is it worth, you know, going to college? Is the return on investment enough? Is it worth just entering the workforce and maybe not developing a technical skill in the classroom, but getting out there and getting that leadership quality, and that leadership experience by actually making money, by actually walking with people and talking with people? And then finally, we come here and we see two very different prevailing thoughts that has happened across American culture. And that simply is necessity the mother of invention, which is what I learned here at CommSwag when I was a student, sitting in the same seats like you were, or is it invention arises directly from the laziness to save oneself trouble? It's absolutely the second one, folks. You invent stuff to make your life easier, to be lazier, to get your job done in a quicker way. And that is not a bad thing. People will tell you all the time, you're lazy. Get off your phone. You've got more accessibility to knowledge now than any generation ever has on a little piece of plastic with a couple of devices that get you connected to a Wi-Fi server. Get on your phone. Look up stuff. Get knowledgeable. Use it. Use the things around you to get yourself to a situation where you can take a calculated risk, understand the pros and cons, and develop yourself in a better way. And you will never do that in a place more diverse than right here in high school. For those of you who are thinking about entering college, you're going to go into a specialized field immediately. Your freshman year, you declare a major. If you go to trade school, you're in an environment where people are going to have the same trade and the same skill set and the same mindset that you do, where they want to develop and become an engineer, an electrician, or wherever they're going. If you enter the work phase right away in an entry-level job, people are going to have the same mindset as you. I want to make money for my family or for myself. I want to provide, get a savings account. Everywhere you go after high school, people will be extremely specialized. When you're here now, you will talk to more different groups than ever before, and you ever will again. So if you're able to communicate between the different groups here in high school, you'll be able to communicate and leverage that soft skill later on in life. And I'll tell you what, I absolutely learned that right here when I was a student at CommSwag, JFK Middle School, when I went to Chaminade High School, when I went to University of Delaware, and it led me to success when I was in the Army. And it led me to success when I'm at Amazon. You gotta have the right philosophy. You gotta be willing to take shots in life. You gotta be willing to understand that there are people out there that have a different background than you, have different life experiences than you, and you'll never have more people like that than right now, right here. There are people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds in this auditorium. In college, that's not always necessarily the case. In trade school, it's not always necessarily the case. Especially in your job, when you're with peers, you're basically making the same amount of money. That's not always the case. You're gonna kind of have the same values because you willingly signed up for that job. But here at high school, you gotta be here. So you might as well meet as many people as you can, learn those skills, and leverage and earn trust through having the right philosophy, which is taking chances in life. So moving on. So now we've learned that we have the philosophy. You understand that I'm a big risk taker, as long as it's got the right odds, just like Michael Scott did with his company. So we move on to what is attitude in the workplace? What is the A of Pat? What is the definition of success, and what is the equation to get there? And it is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's just 3 parts. 80% of success is showing up to work on time. If you show up to work on time, ready to work the moment you are there, you will be successful. I promise you that is the pillar of success. 80% of your success is simply being at the place on time, in the right attitude, with the right uniform on, ready to go. What that means is if your job starts at 9 o'clock, you're not showing up at 9 o'clock with a Starbucks and a cup of coffee in your hand and warming up to the day and ready to execute at 9:30. That means at 9 o'clock, if your boss asks you to be there, you're ready to go. You're ready to work. And if you do that, that's 80% of success. That's it right there. 10% of success is doing what you say you're gonna do. It's delivering on your promises. You control the words that come in and out of your mouth, so you might as well go ahead and over-deliver and under-promise. Over-deliver and under-promise. If you tell everybody at the board meeting that you're gonna bring donuts in on Friday, you better bring donuts in on Friday. Because it doesn't matter how many good things you do out there in life, the one mistake you do when you promise something to a group of people, that's the thing that sticks. Everybody's got a friend out there that's the guy or gal that's got the big dreams and the big promises and the party and this and that, and when Saturday rolls around, they don't deliver. It's always 2 people there playing Mario Kart, and it sucks. It sucks. It sucks. The party they promised was so much better. They overpromise and underdeliver. Failure. Not good. Stay away from those people. Go to the people that tell you you're going to have a chill Saturday night, and all of a sudden you're having the time of your life. Those are the people you want to be around. You want to be around people that deliver on their promises and over-deliver. And finally, 10% is doing what your boss asks you to do. You go to a job, you're getting paid, right? You got to do what your boss asks you to do. You got to do what your teacher asks you to do. You got to do what your principal asks you to do. That's the final 10%. That's only 10%. So we're not asking for a whole lot here. We're not asking for authority people to take over your life. We're just asking you to show up. You show up, you're good to go. You show up, you're good to go, because if you're there and you're physically and mentally available and you're at your job, you're going to start telling people, I'm going to do these things, whether you realize it or not. And now you got to deliver on those promises. And when you do, you're 90% of the way there. You're 90% successful. And the final 10% is just simply doing what the job asked you to do. You signed up for that class. You signed up for that job. You knew what was expected of you. You had the LinkedIn information on it. You voluntarily joined it. So go ahead and just knock it out of the park. Go do your DBQ in history class because your teacher asked you to do it and you're physically there and you said you would because you signed up for the class and you said, I'm going to do it. Go ahead and get into the economic environment and the job force and tell somebody, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead and call that client. You'll be out of that job pretty quick. But if you're there, you do what you say you're going to do, you do what your boss asks you to do, you're golden. LinkedIn in 2012 reported that 33% of new entry-level people did not show up to day one of their job. 33%, 1 out of 3, simply did not show up to day one of their job. Those people are out of the workforce. They volunteered, they said, you know what, I'm not good, I don't want to be here. You show up, you're already in the top 66%. Do you think all 66% of those people were delivering on their promises? Probably not. So now if you start doing that, you're beating all those people. Next thing you know, you're at the top of the hierarchy, you're getting promotions, you're getting different opportunities, you're getting different results. Show up to work on time. Show up to work on time. Show up to work on time. And then finally, you got to have those technical skills. So it's great to be able to talk and communicate well. It's great to shake hands. It's great to say hello, how you doing? Yes, I can empathize with you. I went to Comstock High School. I know all different types of people. I grew up on Long Island. It's the greatest place in the world. And say all that stuff. It is. It is good. It is great. It's great to have that. But you got to have the technical skill needed to succeed in the work environment as well. You got to know how to use your compass. This is me in 2011. In a dorm room, lost. No idea where to go because I couldn't use my equipment. I didn't have the technical skill to succeed as a United States infantryman. I stunk. I was no good. I was not fulfilling that 10% of knowing what my job asked me to do. But I was able to learn it because a hard skill is teachable. It is a teachable and quantifiable quality that you have that you can develop over time. That is learning about the inside of the frog when you dissect it. That is going to history class and learning about World War II and how the Americans and Russians destroyed Germany on two front sides. Those are things that you can learn, that you can develop in a classroom, that you can develop over time through repetition and practice. Your soft skills are not so easily quantifiable. I can't quantify how well Jared speaks today when he comes up after me, or how well President Mosca speaks, when he did the introduction. Well, you can't quantify those type of results, but what you can do is you can quantify these skills right here. And then how do we leverage and use a hard skill and a soft skill together? Well, it's very simple. When you go into an interview, the interviewer doesn't ask you to open up Microsoft Excel and show you how you went through the process. What he asks for, or what she asks for, are examples of when have you used this skill in the past? How will you use it in the future? How will it benefit me? And that's how you leverage the soft skill right there. The ability to communicate with the person, or the panel, or the group of people that are asking you, how will you benefit my company, or how will you benefit yourself? You gotta start going through life examples. And that's where your soft skill comes into place. Speaking with different types of people, using those old examples, and bringing it back to the table. And saying, this is how the hard skill or the technical skill will be beneficial to you. And then finally, where do we develop technical skills? Right here. You probably developed a couple of them in middle school. If you're on the football team, you develop them at practice. If you play, an orchestral instrument or anything like that, you learn it at practice. You learn it through repetition, but not just repetition, but perfect repetition. Practicing it slowly, going over it time and time again. If you practiced a piece of music, quickly, or if you're just throwing 50-yard bombs on the football field, you're not developing an actual skill. You're lucking out every now and then. What you gotta do is go through the fundamentals, learn your skill set. I couldn't navigate through the University of Delaware my first time there, but I learned how to use the compass, read a map, go over the process again and again, and develop that hard skill and that technical skill to succeed. And when I had those technical skills, I was able to use my right leadership philosophy and my attitude by showing up on time all the time, and using that together to leverage the interviewer to hire me, to pick me for the job, the promotion, the opportunity, to take that calculated risk and succeed. You've got to be able to leverage all this together. Being really good in one industry and not another is not enough to succeed anymore. You've got to be able to explain your life story And the way you're going to be able to explain it and empathize with different people is by practicing right now in high school, by talking to friends, by making friends with different groups, by staying out of a specialized environment and getting into a more broad and general one. And we're better than here, because I tell you what, when you graduate 12th graders and 11th graders in a couple years, your whole life becomes specialized. So develop it now, practice it now, and master it now. So now we got to go over what is a soft skill, a little bit of a review, right? So a soft skill is something that's not easily quantifiable. It's more communicative. It's more going over your life story. It's more explaining the processes of, this is when I did use a hard skill in the past. This is where I did make money for my former boss and my former employer. And this is how I will do so for you, or how I would do so for me. And you've got to keep that in the back of your mind. You've got to be able to leverage the two together. Where do we develop soft skills? Right here, right now, at high school. There's no better place to go over this than at CompSwag. You've got all different types of people. You've got all different types of individuals. Go out there and talk with all people at lunch, when you're on the football field, when you're in orchestra, when you're in math class, wherever. And just start figuring out people's life stories and what they're interested in, so that you can use that and earn that trust later on in life. And when you're talking to a more specialized skill set and more specialized group that's not exactly like yourself, you can draw on that experience when you were talking to them here and say, that's right, you guys are interested in this. I've also been in that area, A, B, and C. And how do we leverage soft skills? I gave the answer before. It's through the interview process. Before you ever get a job, you've got to be interviewed. You've got to go through an interview process. They're going to try you out. They're going to check into your background. They're going to see if you have the skill set necessary to succeed. And you can have any hard skill and technical skill you want, but if you're not able to explain how you're going to help that company or how you've done it in the past, you will have no future. You have to be able to explain your life story. So practice now. Tell your friends what's going on in your life. Be honest, be open, be humble, but be truthful. And if you're able to practice that here with the different types of groups that you have at high school, you'll be no more successful than anybody else. You will be more set up for success in the future, I promise you that. So, how did I utilize Pat Talks in Life, and how will you? First, you gotta have a SMART goal. Now, a lot of people like to use the S as specific. I like to use it as common sense SMART. Make sure your goal is SMART, right? So before we were talking about Michael Scott. Michael Scott sits out, he decides, I'm gonna start a paper company. Was that smart? Yeah, it probably was. There is a need for paper in the community, and he's got a lot of experience there. And then you move on to measurable. You move on to the next. Yeah, measurable. Is it measurable? Can you define a company? Absolutely. It's got X amount of employees. It's got Y revenue. It's got Z overhead costs. You've got something measurable. Is it attainable? Could he make the company? Could he know when he hit that LLC and that it was finalized? Absolutely, 100%. He knew when the Michael Scott Paper Company came to be. Is it realistic? Is it realistic? Yes, of course it is. You can start a company. You can go out there, you can apply to college and get a rejection letter or an acceptance letter. It is realistic. There are goals out there that are realistic. And finally, this is the most important part, is it time-bound? Do you have a set backstop to figure out, okay, did I hit my check mark or not? Because if you just leave open goals out there and you never put a time stop to them, they're just gonna be goals that continue to stay out there in that horizon that you never touch or you never go and actually accomplish. I remember when I was first learning how to ski, right? So I'm learning how to ski, and all I wanted to do was go down this black diamond with my dad because he was able to do it and I couldn't. But I never put a time stop on it. I said, I'm just gonna do it one day. One day I'll do it, one day I'll do it. And I kept going down the green circles and the blue squares. I'll do that later, I'll do it later, I'll develop that skill later. I didn't put a time hack. I didn't say I want to do it by the end of 2008 or 2009 or 2010. And because I didn't put a time hack on it, I wasn't able to accomplish that goal because it was not a SMART goal. It did not have a timestamp. It did not have a finalized area. So it couldn't be attainable. And it definitely wasn't realistic. And I couldn't measure it because I didn't put an area where either yes, I did succeed or no, I didn't. When I joined the Army, I wanted to become captain in 4 years. So it fit all the criteria of a SMART goal. And as you can see in this picture, I did get promoted to captain because I had a time-bound area on that. I knew that within 4 years, either I would be or would not be an 03 captain in the Army. And because I kept myself honest and true to that SMART goal, I was more likely to accomplish it, and eventually I did. And that's what you gotta do. You gotta remember that there are time hacks in life. It's okay to sit there and say, you know what? I didn't make this goal, and the calculation might have been a little bit off, but you know what, I'm gonna move it back 2 months. And then hit it then. And that's gonna keep you more honest to yourself and ready to go and ready to succeed. So, like I said, how did I live by the PAT life? I'm telling you the whole PAT philosophy, but how did I live by it? So there's 3 areas of my life, right? So there's schooling, so there's my educational background, there's my military background, and now there's my professional background when I'm at Amazon. So my schooling experience, where did I develop my soft skills? I went to JFK Middle School. I was the quarterback of the football team, I was on the baseball team, I was in a lot of academic clubs that my mom forced me into. And I was in the National Honor Society. So I had a lot of different groups of friends from all different areas. And because I was able to communicate and earn their trust, I used those skills later on in life when I went into interviews. And I had somebody who might have been a little bit more geeky behind the desk than somebody that I normally talk to on the football field, or vice versa. And I was able to use my life experience to kind of leverage that trust that I earned here at JFK and at ComSwag and succeed later in life. When I was at Chaminade, I did something I never thought I'd do. I joined a speech and debate club. I was a football and baseball player. I liked academics, I liked winning, but I didn't like doing it in my free time. And I joined a club that took up all my free time. And I learned a lot of different things from a lot of different people, and I definitely think, you know, my lucky stars I did it. Go out there and take that calculated risk. Do something that makes you uncomfortable, and next thing you know, you're gonna start to develop a skill set that you never thought you had in the first place. I was able to speak with people that are much more intelligent than me, and a lot smarter than me. But because I learned a couple skills in this club, I was able to kind of pretend my way through success too. So it was not too bad. Then you move on to the University of Delaware. So I went directly to college, and I did something that nobody has ever done in UD history. I won the UD Speak Now competition 2 years in a row. So what that is that's a competition that every student at the University of Delaware is able to speak and participate at. And you present an idea to the board of directors, and you explain why your idea is going to change the university for either the better, or why the current path we're going down is for the worse and the where. And I was able to win that competition twice because I earned a lot of these skills at JFK right here, where I learned those skills at or at Chaminade High School, where you go into an environment that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, and you're able to succeed and leverage and use your skill sets that you learned on how to explain stories. Why the technical skills I developed would help Delaware. Well, I was able to use that because I had the soft skills to explain that story. And then finally I went to Georgia Tech and I got my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification. And for those of you who don't know what Lean Six Sigma is, it's a process improvement path. And I highly, highly recommend, because you can earn it now, to go out there and start looking this program online. Because process improvement is the key to a lot of change in the world. Amazon, Apple, Google, Mitsubishi, any big company you can think of that was innovative in any front, whether it was the car industry, the technology industry, or anything to deal with progress and getting the customer experience out there, they use Lean Six Sigma. So I highly recommend you look that up after this presentation. So then I joined the military, right? So after I graduated Delaware, I commissioned as a second lieutenant. Well, how was I living the PAT life then? What was I doing? Well, I decided to jump out of planes for a living, and that's what I did. I went to airborne school, deathly afraid of heights, and my job was to jump out of a plane once a week. So a little unique there, definitely a lot different than where I thought I'd be in life, but because I took that calculated risk and I said, you know what, the parachute will probably work, there's more than a 50% chance, the plane will probably fly, I'll probably land correctly, there's the calculation, it's good to go, I'll probably live, so I went for it. And I figured if not me, then who? And that's why I did that. I served as a platoon leader for Dog Company and Charlie Company in the 1509th, which has the distinction of being the first airborne unit to ever jump in U.S. history. So back in World War II, they're the first ones to accomplish an actual jump. And I was able to have that job and that distinguished title because I took a lot of risks. I had the ability to tell my life story effectively because I developed soft skills right where you're sitting. And that's how it goes in life. If you're able to say the right story to the right people, you will get whatever opportunity you're looking for. And then finally, I served as an executive officer for Charlie Company, which is a job that you have to apply for and actually get through the Department of the Army. It's not an automatic promotion, but again, because I was able to explain my life story and say, I have a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, I can do process improvement, I've done it in the past in this way, and I will do it in the future that way, I got the job. The Army picked me and said, you know what? Lieutenant McCormick, you're good to go, and by the way, here's your promotion to captain within 4 years, which hit my timeline. which was my SMART goal. So that's all you gotta do. You gotta make sure that you're keeping those soft skills and leveraging your technical abilities to succeed in life. And then finally, where am I today? So I'm out of the Army. I did my 4.5 years. I absolutely loved it. I got a lot of experience out of it. And now I work for Amazon. I also co-founded and I'm the CEO of a nonprofit organization called the Futures 2040. And we've done a couple projects, including one right here at the Terryville Fire Department, which was a blood drive. I've gone coast to coast and state to state to feed the hungry during last Thanksgiving and last Christmas to get them and their families meals that they might not have been able to provide for themselves. And this year, we're gonna go ruck the Philly Marathon, 26.2 miles, with an American flag and 3 other veterans to raise awareness to the 22 people that commit suicide every day in the Army. And that nonprofit right there was a calculated risk I took on myself and for myself to get causes out there into the community, to do something that might have been outside my comfort zone. But I sat right in the audience like you did when I was in 8th grade and listened to somebody tell me how they were making a change in the world, and I said, you know what? I want to do the same thing, why not? And you just go for it. You dive head first and things tend to work out, especially if you live by the PATH philosophy. And now finally, I'm an outbound manager at Amazon, right? So Jeff Bezos, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's the guy that gets you your packages every day when you order them online. And he's got 14 leadership principles. I love Jeff. I'm very happy to be at Amazon. I think 14 is too much. I broke it down to 3. And I think my 3 encompass all his 14, right? He's customer obsessed. He's biased for action. He's all these great things. But if you just show up to work on time, if you do what you say you're gonna do, and if you do what your boss asks you to do, you're gonna be pretty successful. And that's what it boils down to right there. So we gotta do an overview, right? What can you do to live by the PATH philosophy? Well, first, you gotta have the right philosophy. You gotta define your own leadership philosophy. You've gotta define your own success. What do you think success is? And once you define that, you can move on to having the right attitude, which is showing up to work on time, doing what you say you're gonna do, doing what your boss asks you to do. And then finally, because you have those 2 things set up, you know what technical skill you need. You know if your job requires Microsoft Excel, or Office, or PowerPoint, or Prezi, or if it asks you to get your hands dirty and build a bridge, or dig a ditch, or throw a ball, or catch a pass. You know exactly what you need to do because you had the right definition going into it. You knew what your job asked you to do, you knew what your high school students and high school teachers asked you to do, and you're good to go. You're good to get out there and you're good to accomplish it. Research, research, research. Know as much as you can. You've got those phones, you've got those computers, use them. Use them to your benefit and to your advantage. Don't get lost in the mass media of today and social media. Go out there and learn something new. Get on Wikipedia, get on WikiHow, and learn how to do something or learn why something works the way it does or learn about someone new. And take examples from their life story to make your own narrative. That's pretty important there. Identify learning opportunities. I never once thought that having talks with my best friends in high school would be the best learning opportunities that I had in life. Being able to empathize and emotionally respond and react to situations I was not directly a part of is the most important skill set you can have, especially when going through the interview process. Understand how to correctly and emotionally respond to situations you're not part of is something that gets lost in today's environment, especially when we're all on the computer and just texting and communicating through Twitter and all that stuff. If you're able to sit in a room with somebody and truly connect with them, that's a skill set that people have long forgotten and are longing for. So if you can do that, just by talking to your friend right now, you're good to go. Never settle for status quo. Never settle for status quo. Just because something's going fine, that's not good enough every now and then. It's good to go out there and get uncomfortable. Identify an opportunity, take a risk. There's a pretty good friend of mine, her name's Nicole, and we play this game a lot. So we'll go out to dinner or whatever, and we'll be sitting across from each other. There'll be like a plate of wasabi or whatever in the middle, and she'll go, odds are you'll eat that wasabi. Odds are you'll eat that wasabi. I don't want to eat wasabi. What? No, you know? And she goes, 1 through 3, if we both say the same number, I'll eat it. If we say adjacent numbers, you eat it. And we'll just play these games. And while the wasabi one is, more for the pain and the enjoyment of the other person that wins and doesn't have to eat it, we also do stuff like, we're out at a bar, go talk to that person. And next thing you know, you start making new friends. And you start identifying opportunities to talk and communicate with different people. And she'll sit there and say, odds are you go talk to that bartender, ask them about their life or whatever. And we'll play that odds game to benefit and grow personally and professionally right there. And finally, win. Define your ethical and moral code and go out there and win. It is okay to be unapologetic when your football team scores a touchdown. It's okay to spike the ball and get in your opponent's face and say, yeah, I got you there. Because they might get you the next time. You got to be willing to take it. But be unapologetic when you win. You are a CommSwag high school student. You're better than most students on Long Island right off the rip because you have better teachers, you have better opportunities, you have better sports programs, you have a better educational system than some people out there. And it's okay to say that and say, you know what, I am defining myself and setting myself up for success. But never forget that you have to give back once you get it. And you got to make those opportunities in those schools and those areas of the country that might be less fortunate than you and give back to them and develop them. It's okay to win and be unapologetic about it, but understand that if you lose, it's going to come right back to you. So take those calculated risks, get out there and win, and be unapologetic about it, enjoy and revel in your success, and then explain and show other people how you did it so they can accomplish that same feat. So now, what is a Pat Talk, right? So we got to come down to the final slide. What is a Pat Talk? The Pat Talk is having the right philosophy in life. It's defining what you think success means to you. And it could be anything from making money, to building a family, to buying a Tesla, to whatever you think success is. And once you have it defined, you'll have the right attitude in that area. And the right attitude in that area is show up to whatever you want to succeed at. If it's your job, if it's the car dealership to buy the product, if it's, the nonprofit to help out on Thanksgiving dinner for people that are less fortunate than you. But if you show up, you're 80% of the way to success. 10% of success is fulfilling your promise, what you say you're going to do. I'm going to bring donuts in on Friday, because if you don't, and Janice changed her morning routine, and she shows up to work, and you don't have donuts, Janice is going to be very unhappy. And I know that firsthand, so don't do what I did with Janice. She gets upset. Bring donuts in if you say you're going to bring donuts in. Do what you say you're going to do. And then finally, do what your boss asks you to do. Do what the job requires of you. If you do those things, it's 100%. You are a successful individual. You will beat your competition. You will be better than your peers. You will get different opportunities, and because you now know how to calculate those risks, you will take them, you will run with them, and you will be better than other people. And then finally, T, the technical skill. Know what your job asked of you going into it. You did the research, you showed up, you took time out of your day to go to a college interview, or go to a trade school interview, or go to a job interview. You know what was expected of you going into that, so do the research and know what that hard skill, that quantifiable skill is. Know where to learn it and where to leverage it and where to gain that experience, and drive and strive and thrive in that environment. So all you got to do, it's very simple, is be able to explain your life story. And if you can do that, I promise you what? You'll be extremely successful if you live by these 3 pillars. So now that we know what the Pat Talk is and what the Pat philosophy is, I want to bring somebody up who's pretty special and pretty cool, a very successful individual. He's worked in a lot of different industries, a lot of different fields, in a lot of different states. He's definitely taken, Jeff Bezos. He's taken a lot of risks and calculated risks out there in the world. And he was sitting in an audience just like you only 4 or 5 years ago. All right? And that guy's Jared McCluskey. So Jared's going to come up here. He's going to kind of explain how he's lived by the Pat philosophy, hopefully inspire you, get you ready to go. And then we'll do some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Hello. All right, first of all, thank you, Pat. Thank you, CommSwag, for allowing me to come and speak with you this morning. I'm very excited to be here with you, and the reason for that is because I'm excited for you all. You're finally about to be done with K through 12, whether you're a junior or a senior. You're going to go into the new phase of your life, finally out of K through 12, be that going to a trade school, entering the work world, or going to college after this. Now, the world we live in is a bit of an uncertain place. We live, I believe, in one of the most fascinating time periods in human history because we've had so much technological change in such a short period of time, and nothing like it has ever happened before. So I think it's a time for opportunity. And it's really a glass is half full or glass is half empty type of perspective that will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So with that, we hope to outline some principles that will be helpful as you go into this new stage of your life. And personally, I'd like to give you a little bit about my story so that you can take some of these principles with you. Namely, I've divided it into K through 12 when I was your age, my adventures during college, adventures at one particular startup, and then I'd say it's been an adventure overall, but more adventures in tech startups afterwards. So with that, who am I? My name is Jared McCluskey. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Decision Point Solutions in Denver, Colorado. We are a big data startup for the legal field, and I manage everything product related, from software engineering, product development, support, sales, and just about everything in between. So a lot of fun there. I also teach software engineering at the University of Denver as an adjunct instructor. I'm actually a self-taught software engineer, did not study it in college. I'll talk more about that shortly. That's my main technical skill. I do business development too on top of that. Lastly, I consult. I started a small consulting firm as JM Consulting and Rapid App Development. And the reason for that name is actually fairly specific, which I'll talk more about shortly. So first of all, I want to take a small audience poll. Who here plays video games? I'm trying to see. Probably about, okay, looking like 30–40% of the audience. Okay, good amount here. So probably about double the amount when I was your age in high school. But my guy friends and I, when we got home from school that day, we were playing RuneScape. We were all in Lumbridge doing something crazy in the world of RuneScape. We're playing Age of Empires, The Sims, Call of Duty, you name it. However, at some point in my life, I thought, playing all these video games is pretty fun, but what if I could actually do something like creating video games? So this was the time when, if you wanted to buy software, you wouldn't really download it online. You'd probably go to a retail store. So I went to Fry's Electronics and bought something called Dark Basic Pro. And I still remember opening it up. It's a language geared towards video games. I opened up an example with maybe only 25 lines of code, hit run, and hit run, and bam, I was in this world and I could do things. And it just blew my mind and I was instantly hooked. I was maybe in 4th or 5th grade at this time. If you ever are interested, Dark Basic Pro is now actually open source on github.com if you ever want to check it out. There are some better ones out there. It's a bit outdated. However, at the time though, we didn't really have that powerful of a computer, so I couldn't do that much. So already it's a question of attitude. Do you just say, I don't have a good enough computer to do this, I'm done? No, I decided to mow lawns. I was mowing my parents' lawn for maybe 10 bucks a lawn. So I started to knock on my neighbors' doors as well, got a little bit money saved up, and eventually bought a laptop. That's the same model back in the day. Great laptop, loved it, and got much more into video games. And so this was me developing a technical skill very early on in my age. I got into a video game called Second Life, which you might have heard of because there's an Office episode where Dwight Schrute says that his first life was so great, he wanted a second one. And so absolutely everything was the same except he could fly, where he was still a paper salesman in this Second Life. So fascinating game though, because it's this virtual world where everything in it is user created. So for example, you could create a car. You could put however many wheels you want on it, the color, the theme, make it look however you wanted. And then in-game, there's a programming language in it called LSL, which is kind of like C#. So then you could take the car that you just created and program it to drive. Could go forward, could go in reverse, left, right. You could make the car fly if you wanted to. You could do just about anything. So here I am in 7th grade thinking, this is pretty fun. I'm having a good time with this. And I eventually built this organization of 300 plus people. The reason why was because it turns out the in-game currency for Second Life can actually be converted to US dollars. So here I am in 7th grade building cars and whatnot, selling them and converting the money to US dollars. And I thought, this is fantastic. I'm having a blast, loved it. And so I had a small online business in middle school, and that's where I cut my teeth with programming. However, keep in mind, this is a lot of my hobby in 7th grade and elementary school and stuff, to the point where my dad actually used to call me a man of few words. I really didn't know how to talk to people that well. And so I'd been doing a lot of speech and debate and getting myself out there. But at some point, it was really when I started to like girls that I thought, I'm not going to get anywhere if all I can do is program, but I don't actually know how to talk to girls. So I decided to put myself out there, did a lot more speech and debate through a program called Texas Youth in Government. I believe you have a New York Youth in Government out here as well, kind of like Girls State or Boys State. Fantastic programs that I highly recommend. This will put you out there doing extemporaneous, on-the-go speeches in front of hundreds of people at once. Talk about an adrenaline rush, a lot of fun. If you really want to develop good public speaking skills, I highly recommend that. Now, of course, this comes with a reason behind it, because so many employers nowadays, and colleges as well, are not just looking for academic skills and not just technical skills. They're also looking for leaders. Leaders who will take initiative, who can do a lot on their own, who can unite people towards a common goal and get things accomplished. So I ran for governor of Texas in the Texas Youth in Government program, And long story short there, the person I was running against for governor is actually a good friend of Pat's who connected me with this, and this is why I'm here. So this is already where you'll start to see that your soft skills will really determine how far you can go and your leadership with that. John Maxwell is a famous author on leadership, and he has a law he calls the law of the lid. And he argues that the amount of leadership potential you have is really the cap on how effective you'll be. No matter your technical skills or anything else, your leadership actually determines the amount of potential that you have. So with this, with my combined academic and leadership experience, I applied to a ton of colleges, landed at SMU, go Mustangs, got the Hunt Leadership Scholarship. And so if you look at SMU, highly recommend the program. And there's a lot of other programs out there like this where they're not just looking for students who have excelled academically, but they're also looking for those who are leaders, who can really unite people towards a common goal and do a lot of things there. Got to SMU, started the SMU Entrepreneurship Club, got onto the Student Senate as well. However, still with having some technical skills already and not totally being, I would say, honestly, I wasn't the best socially. I've done a lot of debate still, but I want to learn the other side of business. So I decided to major in business to develop more soft skills, just as Pat was talking about with the importance there. Hindsight is 20/20 though. I think majoring in STEM is one of the best things you can do. In fact, I'd recommend doing STEM in a double major, such as business or something else associated with that, because no matter what field you go into, having literacy with numbers is so important, will come in handy just about everywhere you go. And that's part of the T for technical skills. And if you don't know what STEM is, that's science, technology, engineering, or math. There's a huge amount of demand for that. And if you have one of those degrees and can do a lot with numbers, there's a lot of demand, and I don't think you'll have too much trouble getting a job. So with that though, SMU has a great finance program. They have a finance honors program called the Alternative Assets Program. And so ever since I entered SMU my freshman year, I was looking at the finance honors program, saying this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna absolutely go for it. And you don't enter it till spring of your junior year. So it was actually gonna take a bit, about 2.5 years to actually get into the program. But this is what I had my sights set on. So I eventually got into the program, and it's an investment banking and consulting fast track program. And absolutely stellar program, very hard to get into. But I had this great, quote unquote great, 5 to 10 year plan. It's not a bad plan, but my plan was to use this to get into banking, to get into consulting or something like that. Use that experience to eventually get to a prestigious tech company, because that's where a lot of my background was, like with my online business in middle school, was doing technology. And so I wanted to use all this to get to a cool tech company. At that time, I had my sights set on SpaceX. And so one winter, I was home with, hanging out with my best friend's parents actually, going over this career plan. And they said, you know, that's pretty cool, but why aren't you just applying to SpaceX right now? And at first I thought, not gonna happen, not gonna do that. But whatever, went ahead and sent in an application. And so, first of all, if you're not familiar with SpaceX, SpaceX is a rocket company. They're the only company to have ever launched a rocket into space. And to date, before SpaceX, when you launch a rocket, after that it either disintegrates into the atmosphere or crashes into the ocean. Like that's the end, and so it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to launch. You launch it, and then it's gone after that. And so Elon Musk, the CEO, was like, why don't we just land it like an airplane and then reuse it and refuel the rocket and be good to go again? So that's what SpaceX does. This is a picture of them launching the Falcon Heavy, where it's actually 3 rockets basically strapped together, and they split, and this is the picture on the bottom left of those 2 rockets landing back on Earth. Never before happened in history. This was only a couple of years ago. And they launched a Tesla into space. It's, of course, the only car we have orbiting our solar system right now. That's an actual picture, and that's what SpaceX does. So I was just fascinated with the company, and this was before all that, actually. It was actually right about the time before they did their first rocket landing. Anyway, all that to say, on the SpaceX application, there's an area where, of course, you submit your resume, but there's a spot for some additional work that you want to showcase that you've done. And a lot of times that'll be like some really strong engineering project that you've done if you're applying to engineering. I was on the business side though, and so with the SMU Entrepreneurship Club, I had this pitch video. We hosted a business pitch plan competition, and I wasn't actually able to be there for the pitch, so I recorded a video and sent it in. And so I decided, hey, I'll just put that in on my application. Didn't think much of it, and then time went on. About 3 weeks later, now keep in mind, this is 2.5 years into college, in the finance honors program that I've been going for the entire time I'm in college. I was walking home from class one day, checking my voicemail, and I got a voicemail from SpaceX. They said that they wanted to chat a little bit more. And I thought, whoa, okay, this is fantastic. And I was literally dancing around my dorm room because I was so excited. And so I interviewed and talked to them a bit more, and they said that they wanted me to start basically next week. And this is in the middle of right when I started the Finance Honors program and doing all this stuff with SMU. And so called my parents up, talked to them, and loved them to death, but their advice was, just call them back and see if they'll take you in the summer. And I thought, oh, hold up, this is SpaceX. So here's my calculated risk. I'm going to take a poll on this in a second. The option was, after a couple of long nights of analyzing all this down to the T, was to temporarily drop out of college, lose a full semester's tuition and scholarship. Now SMU is pushing $70,000 a year. Now I would not have been there if it was not for scholarship. So I would have lost that semester's scholarship. Forfeit all my student leadership positions. So I would have lost the student senate where I was a chair. I was gonna exit the SMU Entrepreneurship Club for a bit. I was even on a dance team because I lost a bet on the Super Bowl. Long story there. I was gonna have to forfeit that as well. I was double majoring and minoring, so I would have had to drop a major and a minor on top of that and just graduate with one single major. I was gonna drop out of Finance Honors as well, which I was going for the entire 2.5 years I was at college. I was gonna have to add summer classes to graduate on time, and I was gonna have to break my dorm lease. All this to move across the country to California and intern for one of the most prestigious tech companies in the world at a very low-level position. Now, I didn't know what kind of position this was gonna be. The interviewer just said it'll be kind of low-level. So I thought, okay, well, it could be a foot in the door. And I would also leap 5 to 10 years ahead in my career plan. So I want to take a poll. Totally fine either way because this is a calculated risk, a very tough decision. If you would have done this, dropped all this stuff to move to California, raise your hand. Wow, okay, so maybe see like 20, 15 in the audience? Okay, so if you would have stayed in school, you would not have dropped all this, raise your hand. Totally fine either way. Wow, okay. So it looks like maybe 80% of the audience or so says they would not have done this. I went ahead and did it, dropped out of school, and moved across the country to Los Angeles, California. So fascinating, tons of fun. My parents were not happy. They would not help me move. I had to borrow a friend's truck, moved myself, essentially. A lot of fun there. And looking back, they were like, okay, that was good. But very, very challenging at the time. So I get there, and so I'm so excited. I'm almost seeing stars at this point, because I finally was at SpaceX, moved 5 to 10 years ahead in my career plan. I get to SpaceX. My manager was awesome, but they had a lot of backlog of stuff that needed to be worked on, hence why she had interviewed me in the first place. And there was this large stack of papers, taller than me, and tons of columns of these stacks of papers. And she said, so we have this large backlog. We need you to stand here and scan these papers into the machine and upload them into the system. And we need you to do it 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so already it's a question of attitude. Is this something where you're going to say, oh, this is awful. No, I'm done. I'm out of here. Or is it something you're going to show up on time? If they ask you to show up at 9 a.m., don't show up just at 9 a.m. Show up at 8:55 a.m. with a positive attitude, ready to get the job done. And so arrive on time, give your absolute best effort. Now, even though we're pushing this forward about having a positive attitude, being a leader, taking initiative, and side note, you don't have to have followers to be a leader. You can still take the initiative on your own. Even with all this, I'm not going to lie though, it's still very challenging. There are actually times when I was walking home from the job after this 12 hours to the parking lot, literally dry heaving, almost throwing up, because I was so appalled that I had just dropped all this, I just dropped all this stuff, my dorm lease, my tuition, my scholarship, to move to California and do this, and I was just going to show for it that I scanned papers. This was very tough. However, I wasn't keeping the full picture in mind at the moment. This is some advice I actually highly recommend, where if you can still get into a low-level position at a company you really want to work at, absolutely take that, because then that can allow you to get a foot in the door. Because companies generally will always want to hire someone internally to a different position rather than posting to an external job board and getting someone external. And the reason for that is trust, and this also relates to soft skills. Where if there's already someone that's in the company that's worked there for a bit, that they're used to, they know people, they know the culture, it's gonna be so much easier for the company to onboard them into the new position that they just interviewed for, so it's so much easier for them to hire within. So that's what I did. Did my best to absolutely knock it out of the park. You've probably heard this quote that's not, I said, just about the grades you make, but also the hands you shake. So I didn't know any Visual Basic, but I learned it on the fly, kind of, because I had done some coding in the past as a kid, and was able to slash the time to upload the documents all together by about 50%, and so almost, will greatly speed up the amount of time, greatly speed up the entire workload, so it got done so much quicker. The manager absolutely loved it. She gave me a hearty recommendation, and this allowed me to network around SpaceX a bit more and start shaking hands with other managers. And so once again, not about the grades you make, but the hands you shake. Not just because I still did my absolute best, used my technical skills, and knocked it out of the park. And from that, built trust and started to network around. So this is why soft skills are so important once again. And plus having a foot in the door and already being at the company, I was still competing with external interviewees for other positions in the company, but this allowed me just to literally walk over, go interview, have coffee with another manager, rather than doing a formal interview process, and then use that to network around and get to different positions in the company. Eventually, got into the SpaceX finance team, which was quite the improvement. And all that to say, can't give too much detail about it, but fascinating experience, highly recommend working for SpaceX. If you're not familiar with Elon Musk, he started SpaceX, started Tesla, started PayPal originally back in the day, Solar City and many other things. If you work at SpaceX, you can also go to Mission Control, which is at the headquarters. So if you work at Mission Control, you can literally walk down the hall and watch a full launch going on. And the launch goes on the coast, of course, but you can see everything right there, and it's really quite a surreal experience. All that to say though, my heart has always been set on entrepreneurship, so I finished my degree and then decided to start a business after that. And so once again, using my technical skills, self-taught engineering, I started a small, it was an app company more so, called Account2Me, later called Simple PF for Simple Personal Finance. It was a personal finance application. And finally, I was so excited from some of the stuff I'd done from middle school with starting a small online business there to eventually starting my own business in the real world. So stoked to finally do it. And then it failed within a year. And that was being generous, actually. It really failed more in about 6 months. And so already it's a question of attitude. Is it something where you just throw in the towel and say, I'm done, that's it, this is the end, I give up? Or do you pick up the pieces and move forward? Some practical advice though. If you ever do startups, startups are very high risk and also high reward, but in any high risk scenario, always have a plan B. So my plan B was, well, I'll start this app company, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll use my technical skills to start an app development company. So essentially do client/freelance work and use that to pay the bills. So I started a company called Foxfire Rapid App Development, which is now JM Consulting, but I want to highlight the Rapid App Development. The reason I called it that, it was actually originally called Ultra Rapid App Development, was for no other reason than I was so desperate to get clients that I was willing to stay up all hours of the night, multiple days in a row, just to get the job done. So then I could pitch to prospects that, hey, they're going to say they can get this project done in 9 months, I'll get it done in 3.5. And they say, okay. And so I wasn't sleeping very much, but I was eventually able to land some clients. And once again, that's another question of leadership, taking initiative, doing your best, and knocking it out of the park with a positive attitude. I eventually landed a larger client in Denver, Colorado called Digital Industry. And this is where soft skills become even more important once again. There are so many talented software engineers, and engineers, anyone technical in general out there, but there are not a lot of engineers who can also communicate very well. So if you have both those skill sets, it'll be quite useful. So when I was building this application, I was still in California at the time, working for this client, and what I would do is I would just pull up QuickTime Player anytime I made major changes to the app, and then walk them through it and explain everything I could, and send the video over, and they absolutely loved it. Being able to communicate with non-technical peers is so important. If you're a software engineer, of course you've got to be able to communicate with your technical peers to actually get the job done, to build the application. But then you're going to have managers who might not be technical. You are going to have clients, you're going to have investors, you're going to have VPs, you're going to have C-levels who all are not technical, and you're still going to have to be able to communicate super well and explain that to them. Once again, it's built on trust. So if you can build a good relationship with a superior as a technical person and communicate that stuff to a non-technical person, that's going to build trust, and they're going to really understand what you're actually doing, and thus you're really going to be set up for success. So I did my best to knock that project out of the park. Once again, coming back to soft skills, I visited Denver, Colorado, and the CEO said, hey, I like your work, and I know we're working on this project some more. You can have a desk at our office. You can keep on working on this project and do your own freelance stuff too. So I said, great, that's fantastic. Moved to Denver, Colorado. Now, once again, still using the same quote. It's not just about the grades you make, but also the hands you shake. It's not just about who you know, but also who knows you. This is so important for the workplace. Now, I wasn't making much money at the time, but I joined a slightly nicer gym that's known for a lot of young professionals working there, so some good networking. One day, after a workout, I was hanging out in the steam room, and a couple of gentlemen next to me were talking about some remodeling they were doing at this gym/club. And for some reason, I just felt this pull of, hey, you should offer to help. So they were talking about painting, and so I said, do you guys need any help painting? And they said, well, we appreciate you offering, thank you, but you can come to our business lunch. We're actually done painting though. And so I said, okay. So I attended their business lunch, and they're actually members of a business association. So I visited this lunch and then started to network around and get to know them more. And eventually one of them came up to me and said, hey, so I'm working on this startup. And I was like, okay. And they described the exact same skill set that I'd actually had, which was both software engineering and also business development and sales. And so once again, it's not just about the grades you make. But, I'll be right back. Thank you. Oops, lost that. Catching up, one sec. There we go. Oop. So once again, it's just not about the grades you make, but it's also the hands you shake and who knows you. Like I mentioned earlier, the best jobs are not going to be posted on external job boards. Instead, they're actually going to be just from reaching out to personal networks. When I hire a new software engineer, I first ask people next to me, I'm saying, hey, do you know anyone who does XYZ? I'm looking for them. Once again, business is built on trust and relationships because I want to know someone who already has credibility, who they've worked with in the past, and then I'd be glad to hire them and work with them. So this led me to my current company called Decision Point. And once again, soft skills, trust, and relationships is how I got the job, and even more important to work hard as you get into it. Attitude, knock it out of the park. And volunteer with that too. Do more than you're asked for, and your superiors and your coworkers will absolutely love that. It's an action of leadership. You're taking initiative to get the job done on something that you might not have been asked to do, which builds trust, and once again, this will help you become better and better. So this led me to my current company, Decision Point Solutions, where I started out just as a developer and doing my best to network around and just shake hands, build trust, doing a lot of volunteering, and that can really take you far. Eventually was asked to head up the entire product division by the CEO. So, bringing it all together, coming back to Pat a little bit, philosophy and leadership. Companies want leaders. The more leadership stuff you can do right now in high school, this will help you get good scholarship in college, get good positions within a company. It'll all cascade and build and build and build from there. As you become a better leader in your next organization or your next company, this will build on itself for you to become, once again, a better leader and have more and more potential. Attitude, simply showing up on time builds trust. As Pat gave the example, if you say you're going to bring donuts, bring donuts. If you say you're going to show up at 9 a.m., you better well show up at 9 a.m., and I would recommend 8:55 a.m. as well. I think that goes socially too. If you say you're going to hang out with someone, hang out with them, or don't say you're going to hang out. It's a matter of your word, and your word builds trust. Your word is who you are, which is your reputation. Technical skills, go above and beyond. There's a lot of opportunity in the world, especially, which I'd be glad to talk about in Q&A more with software, but your technical skills are going to be so important for this world we live in. Also, use LinkedIn. I mentioned I teach at the University of Denver. The reason for that is only because of my LinkedIn. I never actually was applying to positions at the University of Denver to ever teach, but they reached out to me because of my LinkedIn and said, hey, we have this teaching position. We'd love to bring you in for an interview and now teach software engineering at the University of Denver. It's not cliche. Business is built on trust and relationships. As I mentioned, there are so many good jobs, and some of the best jobs, arguably, are never posted on job boards. They're all going to be based on who you know and who knows you as well. Once again, it's not just about the grades you make, but also the hands you shake. Personal anecdote. How much do you talk business versus personal? So there's a client I've been consulting with over this past year, and we went and had dinner because I've been working remotely quite a bit. And so we had a dinner to catch up, and kid you not, over the course of a 3-hour dinner, we talked business for maybe 15 minutes the whole time. And of course, we had the business stuff covered from some previous meetings, but the rest of the dinner was just enjoying life and getting to know each other and talking about just about anything. And that's how important relationships are, where your technical skills and good technical skills at that are going to be a good baseline. But beyond that, it's all leadership, it's soft skills, it's trust, and it's relationships. On that note too, which I kind of alluded to, if I'm interviewing 2 engineers, for example, say they're a technical skill level of 6 and the one is a technical skill level of 7. If the skill level of 6 guy can communicate so much better, guy or gal I should say, it can communicate so much better, is a leader and will take initiative on stuff, while the 7 just doesn't know how to communicate, I'm gonna hire the 6 just every single day because I want someone who I can teach technically, but also can communicate super well. Last but not least, we live in a small world, and so your reputation is everything. With that, character and integrity. And this goes, once again, back to attitude. If you say you're gonna show up on time, that's a reflection of your word. I think that will take you very far. So with that, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and I wish you the best.